devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your number one sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your number one sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, happy New Year, my friend.
Same to you, Jimmy.
Yeah, good to be here. 2025. Looking forward to a big year for the Sick Podcast and the Eye Test Podcast here. Pierre, how was your New Year holiday? Did you have a good weekend?
Very quiet. Watched a ton of hockey, more hockey than you can imagine. World Junior, NHL, even some little guys hockey. And yeah, all good. Very good.
Great.
Excited. I'm actually, as I'm doing this with you, I'm watching the American steamroll the Swiss on a mirror. So I can see the TVs to my right, the mirrors to my left, and I'm just
Smart
like,
move.
yeah.
All right, so I've got the laptops going. I got one laptop to my left of USA Switzerland, another one to the right of my beloved Notre Dame Irish football, and looking forward to watching the second half of that game later. But before that, we've got plenty of hockey to talk about, Pierre. And by the way, too, we were talking earlier this afternoon, and I was driving back from the registry of motor vehicles, which is never fun, but it was good to talk to you after that. Anyhow, you would kind of give me updates on Sweden and Latvia, and it was, I believe it was 3-1 when I walked through my door, or 3-0 when I walked through my door. And then as I'm sitting here scrambling, getting ready for the podcast and making lunch, what have you, all of a sudden it's 3-2, and Latvia almost pulled it off. Sweden held on, but a credit to them. They fought hard. And as you said last week, got all the love and respect for the Latvian hockey fans. They're a great, passionate hockey nation. And they were, if they had won, they were on their way to becoming the fan favorites there, other than Canada. So
Yeah.
I guess they got standing ovation after the game, too, when they announced the goalie as the player of the game. So
The goalie was the player of the game. He was great. And their culture and their passion for playing was phenomenal. They gave the Swedes all they could handle. Look, the Swedes didn't play poorly. The Swedes actually played really well. At one point, the shots were 33-3, and the score was 3-0. I watched the whole game, and you're like, okay, if they score one more, this is going to go off the rails. It's going to be bad. And they just found a way to battle back and get through it. And shot blocking, goal. There was a 5-on-3 they had to kill off. There was an offside goal that got called back. There was so much they had to fight through. And they found a way to do it. So much respect for their program and their culture and their players and how hard they work. Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah, I loved it. Good for them is right. All right, let's talk some NHL, Pierre. I want to start out west.
Sure.
They're going to be in Seattle. They're playing the Seattle Kraken again. A little revenge maybe for last week. They're looking for there. But the Vancouver Canucks right now are missing some key players, and Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, and also that defense right now, Pierre, when you look at that blue line without Quinn Hughes in it, they're not horrible, but they're not great either. They're somewhere in between. And I'm wondering, Pierre, if you're Jim Rutherford and you're looking at that team right now, and just out of precaution, should anything happen again to Hughes as they get closer to the playoffs or in the playoffs, is the blue line your main focus if you're him heading into the trade deadline this year?
Let's also remember they don't have Philip Hronek either.
That's right. Thank you. I was trying to remember the other.
No, it's okay. That's why we work together. It's good. They got holes in the back end, Jimmy. There's no question. The biggest thing, I think, they got to get some harmony in there back to the team. There's been all this noise around what's going on with JT Miller, what's going on with Pettersson. How are we going to have deeper defense? Or do we get Thatcher Demko back at 100%? All these different things. Why did Casey DeSmith leave? There's just so much stuff. So I think Rick will figure this out. Rick Tocchet, his staff as he lead, he's really good. Jimmy's been around. Rutherford's been around a long time. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal for them to figure it out. But they got to get going here. There's no free lunch in the league. And right now it looks like they're expecting free lunch, and there's no free lunch in the league.
Yeah, and this is a team that both you and I felt could make it maybe, at least to the conference final. We felt that they could go deep. So I don't want to say they've underachieved, Pierre. I think that's too strong a word, but I think that they can be better. We'll just put it that way. And
they should be better, but they should be, Jimmy.
Yeah.
They should be better.
Yeah, they were made to succeed. So we'll see what happens with them. Pierre, staying in the Western Conference, the Minnesota Wild also banged up right now.
It's your fault. It's your fault. You wrote a column about Kaprizov. You wrote the column about Kaprizov. It's the SI jinx. You did it.
And then I swear 24 hours after the story goes live, he gets hurt and now he's on the IR. And they've got some other injuries they're dealing with, but they made the call up on defense, Pierre. And I think a lot of fans were expecting Bill Guerin to call up Jurasek, but they go with Lambos, another first rounder, Curtis Lambos. And, this goes in line with what you cautioned fans and so-called insiders about when it came to Jurasek, that, look, this is a kid, he's got tons of potential, but he hasn't put it together yet. And clearly the Wild feel that he still has some improvement to make down in the minors with Iowa.
There's a lateral movement problem for that player. That's what I told you. And you know what? I get it. Everybody hasn't watched the same amount of games, and maybe they don't watch for certain tendencies with players, which is fine. Everybody's got their own way of scouting. So I'm not going to tell somebody how to scout my way, and I don't expect anybody to tell me how to scout their way. But I would tell you this, is that there's a lateral mobility problem for that player. I didn't think he was a lead pipe cinch to be the first call-up. I think it's a matter of fact, when we talked about it, I said Carson Lambos is probably going to be the first guy that you call up.
He did.
and he was. So I'm not surprised. Carson's a really good player, by the way, and a high character person. High character. So no, Minnesota's well coached, really well coached. They're very well managed. They'll figure this out. And Jimmy, you know why they're such a sleeping giant? When the money comes off the books for Parise and Suter at the end of this year, buckle up. Minnesota's developing players. They are. They've got good guys coming. Like Liam, nobody even knows who Liam Ogren is. They don't even know who he is. He's an outstanding young talent. They've got so many guys coming along. And everybody says, well, how come their American League record's not better? You don't win with kids in the American Hockey League. You got to have older guys that can help them. They're a little short on the older guy situation down there. They'll fix that. I do. I truly believe they'll fix that. But they're starting to develop guys internally. And Johnny Hines is such a good coach. They'll figure it out. Yeah,
that's a great point by you too. Obviously, with the dead money coming off the books next year, I remember talking to Billy Guerin earlier. I think actually in the preseason about that. And he's looking ahead to this season we're in right now, and he flat out said, "Look, I hope we make the playoffs. I hope we're in the mix. I think we can be." But this is more of kind of an in-between year from us. He was very upfront about that. So for them to come out and had the season they've had, Pierre, I don't know if, frosting on the cake is a little too strong, but it's revealed to, I think, their scouting, their management, their fans, their coaching department, that maybe they're even better than they thought. And now they got money to spend next summer. So that's great.
You look at players that they stole, okay? I'll give you an example. Brock Faber, I know they traded Kevin Fiala to get him. Brock Faber's a superstar player in the league. He's a kid, like a young right shot defenseman. Where do you find those guys? They don't fall off trees. So that's one example. Philip Gustafson, another example. Yeah. They got him from Ottawa, but there was internal knowledge there. Billy Guerin was and Randy Sexton were part of the management team that drafted Philip Gustafson in Pittsburgh. So they knew the player when they brought him from Pittsburgh or from Ottawa. Ottawa didn't know him nearly as well. I can tell you they didn't know him nearly as well.
We're there.
So, so I'm giving you examples. They've made some really smart acquisitions.
Yeah.
And so that's how you make your team better.
Yeah. And I remember, Pierre, when you were there too, and, we're kind of looking at their goaltending situation. We were having a conversation about that. And you told me straight out, you're like, nobody really talks about this kid, Jimmy. Gustafson's got some potential. I like him. And that was a few years back. I don't know. What are we talking?
I spent a lot of time with that kid. I spent a lot of time with him in Belleville. He was really well coached by Justin Peters. Justin Peters, by the way, is the goalie coach in Ottawa now. I'm just telling you, Jimmy, I know there are a lot of guys with bigger names out there. Justin's as good a goalie coach as there is in the NHL right now. I'm just telling you, there he is. He doesn't have the big name, but he played in the league. He carries himself unbelievably well. He trains like a madman, so he's always in shape. The players see that. They respect that. He's an outstanding communicator. I'm a huge fan, and I think he helped Gus a ton. He helped Levi Marilainen a ton. He's helped Mad Sogard a ton. He's helped Anton Forsberg a ton. Like, I'm just telling you, this guy's really good. And so Ottawa's goaltending is not going to be an issue for them. It's not. And I'm glad you brought them up, because how about how well they're playing on the road? They're playing really well.
Without Linus Ullmark, by the way. And going back to what you're saying about Peters and the work he's done, they're relying on these sort of unknown goalies or younger guys to get the job done, and they are. So credit to them. They'll be in Dallas. They're in tough tonight in Dallas, but they've done all right. So credit to them. Sticking out west, and then we'll get over to the East, Pierre. Some great news. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but some good news out of Denver. Gabriel Landeskog on the ice again skating. I know what a big fan you are of him, Pierre. Take the listeners and viewers inside of what he means to that team and how much his presence, even if he's just around now in practice, how much that will help that team, who, by the way, is on a 5-game win streak right now.
The first time I met him, he was playing for the Kitchener Rangers, and then he was representing Sweden at the World Junior. And Sweden was not the power that they are now. And he had to do a lot of heavy lift on his own. He never complained. He never whined. He never anything. It was just, we're going to make it better. We're going to make it just phenomenal leadership skills. You could see it when he was 17 and 18. He just had those leadership skills. And then, when he broke into the league in Colorado, you got to remember, they weren't very good, Jimmy.
No.
They were a bad team.
Yeah.
And there were some bad hombres on that team. Like guys that didn't care about young guys coming in the league. They didn't care about the young potential leader down the road. They wanted to win now. And I was there doing those games, and he wasn't treated great. He wasn't. Mm-hmm. That being said, you could see when that thing started to go forward positive, he's named captain. He's really the role model for a lot of the guys. He's the one that can decompress the whole situation, when Nathan gets a little crazy in a good way. Look, there's not a coach in the league that wouldn't want Nathan McKinnon on their team, but sometimes he just gets a little bombastic. It happens. It's okay. Yep. There's nothing wrong with that. Stuff happens. He's a passionate guy.
There's rather that than no passion.
No, give me that all day long. So what he can do, Gabriel, that is, he can just decompress that a little bit, and sometimes that has to happen. I saw it happen, and I saw it happen in a good way.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how he affects them on and off the ice, if he can come back, and that's a scary team if and when that happens. All right, let's get out east, Pierre. I'm saving the Rangers for last because we're talking about them every day. Still, they just keep giving us material. Let's talk about those Montreal Canadiens. I know we've got a lot of Montreal viewers and listeners. Look, when they embarked on this road trip that they're on right now, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at it as like, if they can go 500. I think that's mission accomplished. I think that's a good trip for them. I think it keeps them, relatively within striking distance of a wild card spot. They are more than relatively in striking distance now, Pierre. They are right there. 3 points out of a wild card spot. They're 3 for 3 on the trip. They go into Chicago tomorrow, riding high right now. What has been the difference for the Montreal Canadiens to you on this road trip?
You're going to be mad at me. They've won 3 of 4 games in the trip. They lost in Columbus.
Sorry. That's right. They lost Columbus.
That was before Christmas. I get it.
Yep.
I'm going to treat you right. They should have won that game. They should be. They
right.
should be
4 for 4.
They should be, but they're not. And I give Columbus credit for hanging in there. What's gone on there? They've got goaltending. They've had great play from their depth line with Emil Heineman and Yoel Armia and obviously Jake Evans. They've had tremendous play, obviously, from Caulfield and Suzuki and Slavkovsky. I think Kirby Dach has elevated his game fantastically well, playing with Laine and Newhook. Newhook needs to be a little better, Jimmy. He still has some growth to go through. They've created a great role for Josh Anderson, penalty killer, forechecker. They've turned him loose, and he's bought into accepting that role. But I think, Jimmy, the number one thing is getting Carrier from Nashville.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
So now you got depth on the right side, especially because they're right-hand shooter. He and Gooley can play at any time of the game. You need offense, you can put them on. You need to shut people down, you can put them on. Takes a lot of stress off of Matheson, takes a ton of stress off of Lane Hudson. Doesn't put a lot of duress on Jack Guy and Savard, who are playing the 5-6 role. And then the final piece to the puzzle, why are they having all the success? Lane Hudson's on the number 1 power play. So it changes the dynamic of the power play, which is right around 23%. I thought it would be at 23% for the year. Might even be better than what I thought. But Hudson didn't start there at the beginning, so it was kind of a little down. And Laine's been great. Laine's been really good.
And by the way, Hudson was just named the Rookie of the Month for December, so congratulations to him. So, Pierre, here's a big question. It's going to get bigger and bigger as we get closer to the trade deadline, is what do they do with Jake Evans? And we've discussed this a bit last week. You were on here. But for those that missed it, I agreed with you when you said, why not keep him? He fits in perfectly here. He has a role. and you may be able to convince him and look at him and sign him to an extension that maybe will be a little less on money, but more on term. That brings him, what is he, 29 now? So let's say you give him a 5-year deal. He gets to 34, but he has a role here. And, we've seen so many times where players go and they sign a big deal with a team, but maybe it's just not the right fit for whatever reason. And sometimes, as they say, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And I look at that right now for all parties involved. I think Jake Evans really needs to consider, if I'm looking at this team and I'm looking at this team and I'm looking at that team, how well do I fit there compared to where I am right now? Is there really a perfect role for me there? Because he has, in my opinion, the perfect role in Montreal. I really think it would be a great idea for both sides to find an agreement here and keep him there.
One of the biggest things I'd ask the player if I were involved in the negotiation, do you think the coach trusts you? And do you trust the coach?
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you the coach trusts him.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you he trusts the coach.
Exactly.
So that's a big part of the negotiation when you're doing it. Because sometimes, and a very good friend of yours and a guy that I really respect left a really good Stanley Cup winning team, Marty Lapointe.
Mm-hmm.
And he took the money and went to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
So the expectation of what they needed from him as a player, and Jimmy, you were there front and center.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It changed.
Yeah.
And so for a
he
guy
did
that
well the first couple of years,
the guy that should have started as a Red Wing and finished as a Red Wing, I think finished as a member of the Dallas Stars or the Ottawa Senators. But I know that he moved around a lot. I can tell you that.
Yep. Yeah. And, it wasn't until that season, I believe, what was it, 03-04, before they went into that lockout, where he really was able to just be himself and play the role that, similar to what he had in Detroit, where he's that third line grinder and really a leader on the team. But still, he was dogged by the contract because, it's just natural. Fans and media are always going to look at the number and say, well, is he really a $5 million player? Well, maybe he is a $5 million player of that team right now because of his value. And I thought he was at the end of his Boston career. But then, Jacobs blew everything up after that lockout and cleaned house. But that's a great example there. All right, Pierre, to the New York Rangers we go. They are playing, speak of the devil, the Boston Bruins tonight. Big game for both sides there. But we're looking at the schedule coming up for the Rangers. And as you pointed out to me on the phone today, back-to-back this weekend, matinees, one at home against the Capitals, the next one on the road in Chicago on Sunday. So Saturday, Sunday, back-to-back. If they lose tonight to the Boston Bruins, a lot of chatter still surrounding his team. Is another shoe going to drop? If you're on the verge of doing something, we don't know anything right now. So I'm not saying that they are. I have no inside knowledge that there's anything pending or about to happen. But let's just say you're Chris Drury and you've got something, you're thinking about doing something big, whether that's a change on the bench or whether that's a trade, what have you. If you lose tonight and you have a day off and then you got a back-to-back, is it better to do that before you hit that back-to-back, or do you wait until after the weekend?
I wait till after the weekend. I think you got to look at you got to look at the next 6 points as 6 points you have to have. So it's almost like a playoff series. So tonight's game one of the best 2 out of 3, basically. Mm-hmm. And so let's just say you win Saturday, then you get greedy to win Sunday. But let's say you lose Saturday, you still got a chance to win them 2 out of 3 because you're going into Chicago. The problem is that if you pull the trigger on the off day, I think you're so disjointed going into the home game on Saturday. Mm-hmm. It's a day after. You're not going to practice hard. It's 3 games in less than 4 days. They are what they are right now. They may make a trade. They might make a trade. I mean, we've seen that already. Jacob Trouba has been traded out of there. Capo Caco has been traded out of there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who's next. But if they don't, I can tell you this. If they don't win 4 of the next 6 points, somebody's going out of there by Monday.
And Pierre, look at the 4 games after that back-to-back set over the weekend. They host the Dallas Stars, they host the New Jersey Devils, and then they're on the road against the Golden Knights and the Avalanche.
That's why I said to you, if they lose these next 6 points, something's changing there. I don't know what it's going to be, but something's changing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting there. And I look, we can go on and on about what is wrong with that team, but I feel for Peter Laviolette right now. And I'm so tired of coaches paying the price, but unfortunately, that's just the way it seems to be in not just hockey, in pro sports.
But Jimmy, one thing on that, and I've been really trying to be a deep diver on the Rangers. You and I talk about a lot of different things, and I've shared some intel with you that you can't put on the air.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, how come guys aren't getting better? So I'll give you an example. Adam Fox isn't better than he was a year ago.
Nope.
Braden Schneider's not better than he was a year ago. Jacob Trouba wasn't better when he was there compared to a year ago. Keandre Miller's not better than he was a year ago.
Yep.
And I can tell you with comfort, and I think it's injuries more than anything else, Ryan Lindgren's not better than he was a year ago. So I just gave you 5 of the 6 D, Jimmy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things we've talked about on this show for almost 2 years, a year and a half, if you're not making players better in the NHL, in this NHL today because of the cap, you're probably not going to do better as a group.
No.
Development matters a lot in this NHL. And I haven't seen a lot of development going on with their younger guys, especially on defense.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting a kid out, Zach Jones, and I know you read all the articles out in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I know you do because you send them to me.
I know. Did you see what he said too when he was, he voiced his frustration that he's not going to play, and then he's put like an asterisk. And I just want to make this clear. I'm not pulling a Kako, a Kako here. I'm not trying to voice my way out of here. Okay, let's make that clear. I said it's gotten to that point where when they talk to the media, they have to preface things by saying that it's that bad right now. So, all right, Pierre, final topic.
Can I ask you one? Can I ask you one before you? And I don't know where you're going because we didn't rehearse this part of the show. We never do. What was your take on Patrick Roy in Toronto the other day, pulling the goalie with a little less than a minute to go in his own zone?
Yeah, you know my take, and we'll tell the public this right now. I sent you a text, and I was like, what the bleep is he doing right now? I mean, really, like, what is up with that? I get he wasn't he the guy, Pierre, when he was a coach with Colorado.
He's pull early, the early pull.
Yeah, the early pull. Okay, I get an early pull. That's become a thing now. Understood. But you're down there in the defensive zone and you pull the goalie, and I get it. And people trying to say, well, if they win the face-off, they're okay. Well, that's a big if. That's a huge if. I mean, you're taking a huge chance there, and I don't know what's going on there with the Islanders, Pierre, because I'll tell you what, I felt like at that point the game was over, but they played them tough for a game where I thought Toronto was going to come out guns a-blazing because of the way the Islanders embarrassed them a week earlier. The Islanders played pretty tough up into the third period, and I'll give them a lot of credit, but I just felt like that was like, what's the point? Why risk it like that? So
I wonder if you had to say anything to the players, because I haven't read anything. Mm-hmm. I wonder if Lou Lamoriello, our friend, said anything to him. I think it's an integrity thing. I think it's a game integrity thing. You got guys to your point, which I think is a really true, valid point. Those guys gave Toronto a lot of hard stuff in that game. Yeah. Like, they battled. I watched the whole game, and I thought they deserved a lot of credit, the Islander players. They battled hard. And then, you're still in it, and all of a sudden the coach does that, and you're not in it anymore. You're down 3-1, and it's over.
Yep.
I wonder what – I remember one time, and I'm going to look at myself right in the mirror. I took a bench minor penalty in New York, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't deserve it, but I got it, and I know why I got it. I lipped off earlier in the game, and the referee – who was a good guy, but he was mad that day because the fans were giving it to him, and so was I. I got a bench minor, and eventually I think they scored on us because of what I did. But I think eventually we won the game, Jimmy, if I remember correctly. It's 30 years ago. But I'm pretty sure we won the game. But I apologize to my players. I'm just telling you. I felt so bad. It's like, I put you guys in an untenable spot. That's on me, man. I should never have done that. And I'm really sorry about that. I wonder if they had that conversation. I don't know if they did or didn't. But that's the first thing I thought of. And then I said, oh, my goodness, if Coach Lamoriello didn't approve of this or think it was good,
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
I'm
You know him
I'm
very
wondering how
well.
that went.
Yeah, you know Lou Lamoriello very well. You know how he reacts to things. And that's where I was going to go with that. Where like, I can't see that being a Lou Lamoriello type move, and he's going to sign off on that. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I know we promised no drama here. So I'm going to leave it at that. But that's one of the things, but I kind of went deeper into it with you, but I'm not going to say what I said.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was just interesting to see how he would react. All right, quickly, one more thing in the East I want to talk about, and then anything you want before we get into Q&A, go ahead, Pierre. Read Nick Kiprios' column today in the Star, and, you know, a lot of people are talking about this with Toronto right now, the Austin Matthews injury. If you're the Maple Leafs...
No way. I can tell you right now, not a chance. He is not playing in the Four Nations, if that's where you're going. No way.
It is. I'm going, and I'm 100% with you.
No way.
100% on board
No
with
way.
that.
Look, I get people are excited about the Four Nations. Anything without the Russians and without Czechia and without Slovakia, to me, is not a major event. Okay, and I say that with respect. I think it's an important event, but it's not the Olympics, and it's not the Canada Cup. I'm just telling you. So no way. And believe it or not, Jimmy, 10 days ago, I said that on another podcast that I work on every week. Mm-hmm. And I said that demonstratively. I said, I'm telling you right now, there's no way I would let him play. I don't care.
I'd already have that discussion. And I'd be like, look, Austin, I'm sorry. I know this means a lot to you. I know you've been looking forward to going head to head with Connor McDavid in international play. But, you know, we have arguably the best window we've had in a while to at least make the conference final, if not the final. Like, we can't pass that up. I mean, you're the key to this. Like,
the only way I would tell you that I would let him go is if my doctors in Toronto, nowhere else, my team doctors.
Oh yeah, not Germany.
My team doctors say he's 100%, and we sign off on him playing. He can't get any more injured playing because of what he has right now. Yeah. And if they can't get that, I'm not sure I would. I wouldn't let him go. No chance.
Yeah. And you know, as far as USA goes, they're still really deep. Like, I think even without Matthews, they could win that thing. I don't.
Hey, did you watch Jack Eichel the other day against Montreal? Like, Jack Eichel was really good. I know they lost the game, but if you watch the first 40 minutes of that game,
he was doing everything Cassidy said on our podcast.
Yeah, Jack Eichel was outstanding.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the American-born players in the NHL right now offensively. You know, they can say whatever they want. We got this guy. You know, the guy that I would get on the team, I'd bring Ryan Leonard from Boston College and say he's playing on this team.
We do not rehearse this. I swear to God, I was just going to ask you that, Pierre, and I was going to ask you if it's. I don't know if it's allowed. If they're allowed to bring outside NHL players in this tournament. I know you could for the Olympics.
As I say that, I think Ryan Leonard just got hurt.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I think he got hit right in the mouth. As I say that, you probably see it. There's Coach. Yeah, that's Ryan Leonard.
Uh-oh.
Just as I said that.
Okay. Wow.
So
anyways, anyhow, go ahead.
Anyway,
but I was just
he's a guy, like, I'm telling you right now, the Washington Capitals have found nirvana with this guy, man. He's a power forward. You put him with any center, anyone.
Yep.
Oh, last year he had Will Smith. This year he's got Jimmy Higgins. You know, Higgins is going 1, 2, or 3 in the draft.
Yep.
Will Smith went 4. But let's just say you put him with, I don't care, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Put him with whomever you choose.
Yep.
This guy's going to get a whack of goals.
Oh, my gosh, Pierre.
He's a pro player.
I don't know if there's specific rules for this specific tournament that would prohibit them from bringing a player that's not in the NHL yet, but it's something worth looking into, because I thought the same thing, Pierre, as I was watching the game before we came on. I go,
don't you think, though, Jimmy, like, after our interview with him, you didn't really know him as a person. I don't even know if you'd ever spoken to him before.
Nope. I was so impressed.
When you hear, and I've been encouraged, whether you're a Washington Capitals fan or just a fan of hockey or a fan of Boston College, and you've never had a chance to meet Ryan Leonard, go watch that episode. Yeah. He's so good. You know why he's a good player.
And he appreciates the game so much, Pierre. Like you can just tell he's such a student of the game.
Yeah.
He's passionate about it. Looks like he's okay, by the way.
Okay, good.
All right. Speaking of the Four Nations, Pierre, I want to remind everybody out there that we are going to be, when the games are in Montreal, the first week there, we will be up at McLean's Public House. That's 1420 Peel Street in Montreal. Not the old McLean's on Lower Peel. Go Upper Peel on the other side of St. Catharines. We'll be there before each game, 6 to 7 p.m. So come on by and say hello. We've got some good guests. We're lining up for that. And then in the games in Boston, we are going to be at West End Johnny's, which is down the street, right across the street and a little down the street from TD Garden at 138 Portland Street in Boston. Really looking forward to that, lining up guests for that as well. So we're very excited for that. And as we get the guests booked, we'll let you know. And hopefully we'll be able to see some of our listeners and viewers there if they're going to be in the area. So looking forward to that.
Don't forget the Bean Pod too.
And then before that, the Bean Pod on February 3rd and February 10th, the first 2 Mondays of February. Very busy traveling month for the eye test. And it will all start a little before that for me, Pierre. It's January 24th. I'll be down at CT Ice, down at Sacred Heart University, where all the 4 Division I schools in Connecticut will play in honor of Jason Pagney, a great member of the hockey community there who passed years back. They do a great job with all the charities there. So I'm starting to get some information. When I can make it official, I do have some guest announcements I'll be able to tell listeners about probably early next week for that as well. So looking forward to that. We got one more thing, Pierre, before we get to Betway.
Okay.
We have special guests coming on tomorrow for our first on-campus Friday of 2025. And he will be coming on to discuss arguably one of the biggest upsets in college hockey history when UNLV's club team beat the University of Denver. Yes, a shorthanded Denver team. We understand that. But still, they beat the University of Denver last week. It was a great upset, a great moment for that program as they look to become a D1 program. So their head coach, Anthony Vignieri Greener, will be joining us live tomorrow at 4:15 Eastern time. So you want to tune in for that here on Campus Friday on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. All right, let's get to our wonderful sponsor. And we've got a slate of games. It's back to full strength for the NHL here. By the way, before I get to that, one more thing, Pierre, and I'm sorry I don't
go easy. I think I know where you're going. You're going out.
I think there could have been a few more games.
Are you going to Wrigley Field?
I'm going to Wrigley Field. I'm going to schedule making. I think there could have been a few more games on New Year's Day. I still would have had the Winter Classic on New Year's Day. And the other thing is I've discussed with you, and if they do have this ability to do so still, then I'm mistaken. But as far as I know, they don't use it. Why not flex the game? With all due respect to the Chicago Blackhawks and the St. Louis Blues, who I think are going to be amazing teams in 2 to 3 years, they're not there right now. You're going to a general audience. You're not going to the specific St. Louis and Chicago audiences. I just think a different matchup would have helped the appeal of this. And also, the other thing is a lot of people were unaware that the Winter Classic was on New Year's Eve here. So that's just my take on that. I'm not trying to insult anyone. I just think they need to reevaluate it going forward.
Move along.
There we go. See, I like it, but I put it nicely, didn't I? All right, let's get to Betway.
You did. I'm proud of you. You did a good
All right,
job.
let's get to Betway right now. We've been telling you about their special, and apparently it's still there. So you can still go over to Bet the Beauties with Betway and join the action. And right now, if you sign up, now you got to be a new customer for this, new member, you get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. So scan that QR code right in front of you if you're watching, or go to the website and sign up in the details section to create an account and redeem your new welcome offer. The offer, again, is only available to new customers. It is not available in Ontario. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 plus. Please play responsibly. All right, let's do the sick pick of the day.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right, Pierre, I'm going to go to one team that we discussed earlier, Minnesota Wild. They're tough a little, I think, right now. They're going into Washington to play the Capitals. The Capitals have been a bit up and down. I think they get it together now. They won their last game. I think they continue to roll here. I'm going with Washington Capitals on the puck line, -1.5 at +154. That's some great value there against a depleted Minnesota Wild team. I do think the Wild bounce back as they get healthier, but right now I like the Capitals in that game. All right, let's go to the Q&A. What do we got? Postnet on 130. World Junior Championships. Can the Canadian kids pull it all together against Czechia kids? Penalties, lack of discipline, not being able to get in the inside areas to capitalize. The pressure is high. Pierre, what do you think today? We're already discussing this. This is no, certain game for Canada right now. I don't think any of them are. But they're playing an underrated Czech team.
Well, Czechia is really veteran-oriented. They're bigger, they're older, they're mature. They've got a lot of NHL draft firepower on their team. Not going to be easy I'll tell you what, if Canada doesn't get the lead in that game, I don't think they can win. They can't play from behind. They've got to get the lead in that game. That's got to be stressed by Coach Cameron and his staff. We're starting on time for this game. And, we can't start 5 minutes late. We got to start 2 minutes early. So you better have your engine running. And this is not going to be easy for Canada. This is why you got to do well in the round robin portion of the event, so you don't have to play in the quarterfinal in this kind of a matchup. You see what the Americans are doing to the Swiss. I know the score was tight, Sweden versus Latvia, but the Swedes were in total control of that game. Look at the shots on goal. It was not as close as a score. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Finland and Slovakia. I think the Finns are the favorite going in, but we'll see how it plays out. But for Canada, this probably is, outside of having to play the U.S. again, probably the worst matchup they could have had.
All right, next question. And after this question, guys, let's go to that Twitter question that I sent to you just so I don't forget. All right, next question. Alex Evanovsky, there have been reports of interest of a trade between Buffalo and Detroit. Based on where both teams are at and their current timelines, what type of trade would make sense without naming names?
Detroit needs defense.
Mm-hmm.
They need defense. They do. They need defense. Buffalo needs a little everything.
Mm-hmm.
They need physicality. They need centermen. They need some depth on defense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to say if that would be a fit. They're in the same division. They're playing each other. I don't know who reported it, Alex. So that's speculative.
So I know what Alex is talking about. Right before Christmas, I believe it was Elliot Friedman, Pierre, said that there were a ton of Buffalo scouts at a Detroit game in Detroit. But then again, I forget.
Well, who was Detroit playing? Were they playing St. Louis?
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I want to. Let's go. Wait a minute. Let's go back right now because this is exactly.
Here's what I know: Detroit going to the break had 2 with Montreal and 1 with St. Louis, and lost all 3 games.
It was a St. Louis one.
They lost 4-0 in that game.
So that's what I was going to say, Pierce. Who's to say they weren't looking at St. Louis?
Well, that's what I mean. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
And you know who would know Buffalo's roster from St. Louis? Jim Montgomery. Guess where he used to coach? Division rival. So exactly. I apologize, Alex, because I think there's a lot of meat to your question. I just can't give you an answer because I can't see Buffalo and Detroit making a deal. And if they do, good for them. But I don't know how either team I just don't know how it would help either team.
All right, next question. Okay, this was the Twitter one from Mike Howe. What's up, Mike? Afternoon, Jimmy and Pierre. Enjoy your show. Question. If we disregard the current standings and look at how teams are playing right now, which teams would you pick in your top 5? Okay, so you're saying who's in terms of who's the hottest teams right now, I guess?
Washington would be one of them. Washington would be in there. Winnipeg would be in there. Vegas would be in there. The way they're playing right now. Ottawa might be in there. The way Ottawa's playing. You know who else is playing really well? LA Kings. They just shut out New Jersey last night, 3-0. So I mean, it's a loaded question, but those are 5 pretty good teams I just gave you right now.
I agree with all those teams, and one team that I might throw in is the Montreal Canadiens.
I would, except I would just say this. The Vegas game, the first 40 minutes, they didn't look like they belonged. And that was a Sam Montembeault win. I don't know what the media wrote about it, but that was a Sam Montembeault and a guys caring about one another win. Because the first 40 minutes, they weren't in that game, especially in the second period. They weren't in.
And the other thing, too, I'd say, Pierre, is, People are going to look at that game tomorrow and look at Chicago and what just happened in the Winter Classic and where they are in the standings and be like, oh, they're gonna get another one here. Not so fast.
No, don't over. The only thing I'll say, the only thing that buoys that argument, usually after the Winter Classic, it takes you about 5 to 7 days to get back in rhythm.
I was going to ask you about that.
Because you practice outside. It's usually much colder than what it was in Chicago. Usually you get wet. I mean, it's a different thing, and it takes time. You get amped up. It's a major event as a player or a coach. It's a major deal. But it's hard to get back to the NHL grind because it's different. It's just different. Usually it takes you, like I said, 5 to 7 to 10 days to get back on track.
And Pierre, is it harder when you win it because there's a letdown because of the emotions, or no?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the same for both teams. It's it is what it is, but the conditions usually are a little more draconian than what we saw. I talked to somebody that was there. Their son-in-law was playing in the game, and you should have heard the guy. And I talk to this guy almost every day. He was so sick. He was like deathly sick. And I was like, where'd you get that? He goes, at the Winter Classic. I was like, It wasn't even that cold. He goes, where I was sitting, it was cold.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I remember reading, Pierre, the temperature in a span of 48 hours went up and down 20 degrees. So that
could have been it. Because obviously he was there for the family skate, and then they go home and do their stuff, and then they go back and
be around all those people too. And who knows? Well, I hope he feels better. All right, next question. Max R, if a contending team is playing well into the deadline, would you rather add a top 2-line player or a depth player to not disrupt chemistry? I guess it depends on how those top 6 are playing, Max. I mean, it'd have to be specific to that team. If your top 6 is playing well, I think that's a valid question. Like, you don't want to screw it up, but at the same time, if you have a chance to add a superstar at a good price, go for it.
Well, without ruining the integrity of your roster. But a lot of times teams think about, okay, do we need a depth defenseman to help us get through? Because injuries are going to happen. Do we need a depth penalty killer? Do we need a guy that can check? Every team's different, so it's not one size fits all. But the question has a lot of meat to it. It's a good question. It's a very fair question.
One more thing on the trade deadline, Pierre. Around when are the usual final scouting meetings, the pro scouts each year, and will the Four Nations disrupt that at all?
A lot of teams are heading down pretty soon for their scouting meetings. They do amateur. Some teams do amateur and pro at the same time. And they usually go away to a warm weather place. That wasn't like that when I was working, but it just seems over the last 15 years, it seems more and more like they do that. It's kind of a reward for the scouts for working hard, and usually the scouts bring their significant others. So it's whether it's a husband, wife, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So usually they take place pretty soon.
Yeah, that's what I would think. All right, next question. Randy Workman, what will it take for the Isles to make the playoffs?
A lot.
It's too long to list. All right, next question.
No, you know what? Would help them a lot if they beat Toronto tonight. But there's
another weird scheduling thing, huh?
3 games in less than 2 weeks. 3 games in less than 2 weeks. Islanders and Toronto. Go figure.
And they're not even division teams.
It's just weird. Oh, it's just weird. Anyway,
the Four Nations has a lot to do with that.
What's that?
The Four Nations has a lot to do with the weird schedule.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's a lot. We can all sit here and complain about the schedule. The guys that put the schedule together, Steve Hasapetros and his team, that's a freaking hard job. Really hard job. I'm really good friends with the man that was the original schedule maker, Phil Scheuer. And he did it without the luxury of a computer. And he showed me how he did it. And I'm telling you, it was amazingly difficult because I learned obviously from Craig Patrick and Scotty, you could argue about your schedule back in the day. It's a little harder to do that now. But yeah, no, I mean, it's not easy to do, but this is a different schedule. I think Jimmy's right on. It's because of the Four Nations.
All right. Next question. Chris L. Question for Pierre. What is wrong with Noah Dobson this year? A right-hand shot, and would teams, Habs maybe, target him as an RFA in the offseason?
Great. So first of all, I love that question. And Noah's a name that's under the radar, obviously an Islander player and somebody that's got a lot of offensive upside. So I would say part of that is they didn't have Barzal for a long time. They didn't have a lot of the components they wanted to have because of injuries up front. They wanted to be relevant going into, this stretch of hockey. They got a lot of their guys back now. But Noah he just didn't have one of those, I'm ready to dominate kind of moments to start the year. And I think it's just kind of hurt him because based on what he did last year, I agree with that question. Like Noah Dobson should have had a heck of a year this year, and it hasn't translated yet, which is fortunate for him and the Islanders, by the way.
All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, do you think Zibanejad is just in a huge slump, or you think his age and injuries are taking over? I think it could be the latter. I think that he's banged up. I also think, like probably the whole team, mentally he's struggling right now too as they try to climb out of this abyss that they're in.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with him. He's just not the same player.
Watch too.
Very really painful. I've never heard a bad thing about him as a kid. Never once. Yeah. But it's hard to see a guy go through that. I watched the other day, they were playing, and I'm like, wow. He's not the same guy.
His body language and his facial expression.
It's just not the same. And you can see it's hurting him. You can see it.
Oh, yeah.
You know how I said the other day about watching Laviolette on the bench, having walked in his shoes and to see the pain that he's going in? I watch Mika and I watch Kreider, guys that I really respect. I'm like, oh, these guys, it's not fun.
And they're so proud to wear that jersey too, All right, next question. Brad K. Wrigley held 40,933 for the Winter Classic. UConn can hold 42,704. Why isn't there a reason we get the Bruins and Canes / Whalers? They held a Whalers Hockey Fest with alumni in 2010. It can be done. Hey, if they can make it happen, I'm all for it. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Hey, it's 50 years of Whalers hockey this year. Chuck Caden's going to be the MC at their event. Our good friend Charles Caden is going to be there.
Oh, nice.
50 years of Whalers hockey. Heck, I don't know. Truth of the matter is that I enjoyed living there. I really was proud to be part of the organization when I was there. It's an amazing hockey community. It is.
Very underrated.
They don't have an NHL team there, so I don't think the NHL is going to do a thing there. Yeah. I just don't see that happening.
There's no plans to go back there, unfortunately.
I used to have this conversation with Gordon Miller at TSN all the time when we worked together, and we did for 11-plus years. So a lot of airplane flights together. And one of the things we talked about is how could we make the Winter Classic really unique? And we came up with an idea. We'd play it in the Rockies, at the top of a mountain.
Okay.
You put in, the seats that they put up for golf events.
Mm-hmm.
Big stands, but not permanent. And you put a rink up there. Play Calgary versus Edmonton, or play BC, play Vancouver versus Calgary. Or go down and do it in Utah now. Do it in Utah.
As versus
against LA.
Yep.
Or Vegas versus Utah.
I like it.
I think that would be the hook. Go do something different. Go play up in the Rockies. Go play something in the mountains.
They did, remember, Pierre, they did something similar to that, but they couldn't have fans. It was during COVID when they went to Lake Tahoe.
And, but they did it in Tahoe.
That was beautiful. That backdrop, oh my God.
But so that's not real. You're in a town there. I'm talking, go out. The other thing, too, we talked about, you really want to make it fun? Go to a farmer's field in Saskatchewan.
Ooh.
Go to a farmer's field in North Dakota. And do it there. You really, I'm so, can people stop talking? Oh, it's so pure to go outdoors. It brings me back to my youth. How many stories do you have to hear about that? We all know that. I told Jimmy the story. When I was a kid growing up at Mont-Tremblant, Quebec, our lake was frozen by Christmas time, and we used to steal a baked potato from my mother's kitchen and use that as a puck down on the ice because the silver tinfoil on the baked potato wouldn't go through the ice as much of through the snowbanks as much of a puck as a puck would. So that's playing with a baked potato. I mean, I don't tell that story a million times. So everybody has their own little thing. But if you want to grow the outdoor game, you got to bring it to a different venue.
Bring it to the wild. There we go. I like it.
Bring it to the wild.
I mean, the wild.
And let the wild be part of it.
Oh, there you go. There you go. All right. I like it. All right. Next question. Randy Workman. Huberdeau is on his best season as a Flame. He is, and nobody's talking about that. I'm glad you
Well,
brought that up.
the last 10 games he has. The last 10 games
Yeah.
he's been
No,
electrifying.
credit to him after everything he's been through. I like to see that. I'm wondering if Pierre has noticed anything different in his game this season.
Yeah, he's competing harder for loose pucks. I think he's really competing harder for loose pucks. He knows he's got to win battles, and he's doing that. I'm really happy for him. Again, he didn't ask to be traded there. He got traded there. And that some guys can handle that and some guys can't. He didn't, for whatever reason, that was a tough transition for him. Really tough.
All right. Next question. Alex Ivanowski again. If this doesn't improve, do you think the Rangers made a huge mistake when they fired Gorton and Davison and ended the rebuild prematurely? I know they got Panarin, but it's starting to feel like it. Yes, 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 yes. Does that answer that, Alex? But hey, the Montreal Canadiens are happy that happened. So
that was a bad deal that wasn't handled properly, and that's about all I'm going to say about that.
Yep. There we go. Next question. Sound the siren. What's up, buddy? Am I way off to think the NHL could do a doubleheader outdoor game? Florida, Tampa Bay, first game, then the Whaler Canes versus New Jersey, second game. Well, I want to say one thing on the Florida Tampa thing because, it's all but confirmed they're going to be having a game next year in Florida, Pierre.
Yep.
They also said our good friend George Richards is reporting that it's only going to be Florida. It's not like they're going to have another team. Maybe the Bruins or the Rangers come down instead of what I just thought would be a natural thing to celebrate, the growth of hockey in Florida versus Tampa. They've got a rivalry.
Oh.
They're screwing up that if that's the case.
No, because you're missing one thing.
Oh, I know. TV market, right?
Yeah, so here's a question I have for you. Have you read any press releases about the TV ratings for the outdoor game? It happened 2 days ago.
No. And
Why?
I don't think I'll see any because I don't think they were good.
So now you understand why they can't just have Tampa and Florida.
Right, because you're secluding it to one market. I get you. And obviously New York too, or Boston, with all the Boston Rangers fans down there. All right, next question. Jason Logan. What's up, Jay? Happy New Year. Pierre, been watching some highlights on TSN, and when you were between the bench, Pens versus Flyers coach Bilesma and Alain Vigneault had their heated moment. Would that be the best one you've seen, or can you talk about another?
Oh, I've seen a lot. That Flyer Pittsburgh one, that was actually Peter Laviolette.
Okay.
And Tony Granato was the assistant to Danny Bilesma. And what happened was there was a big hit in the neutral zone. And it was Danny Briere that got hit. Joey Vitale hit Danny Briere. And Laviolette lost it. And he and Granato are really tight from the Olympic team. And I forget if it was Tony who was in Laviolette's wedding or Laviolette was in Tony's wedding. But Laviolette took a stick and swung it against the partial glass where I was standing, and the blade went whizzing by my face, and all the water from the blade went on my glasses. And I'm telling you, it didn't miss me by much, but it hit Granato on the other bench. The blade did. So these guys wanted to get after one, and Bilesma's looking at me. I'm not kidding you. He goes, "What did I do?" I said, "You did nothing. Don't worry." He's mad about Briere getting hit by Vitale. Oh, so yeah, that was that one. I've seen a couple pretty good ones. I was involved in a couple pretty good ones when I coached too. But yeah, no. I saw a lot of good ones, Jason. And you know what? I always, and the league knows this too. This is for the NHL. That position was gold, and it was created by a spirit of cooperation between the NHL, the NHL coaches, the NHLPA, and NBC. That's how that position was created. And forever, I will be forever grateful for what the league did with Dick Ebersol and Sam Flood to make that position work with the coaches and the players. And the one thing I always tell everybody that wants to go work there, that's not your workplace. That's their workplace. You're a visitor. You're an interloper. Respect the position and respect the guys that are playing in front of you. And not that I did it perfectly, but I always tried to live up to that.
Yep. You don't have to say what it might have been, because it's probably not proper for this, but did you learn some new insults and one-liners while you're down there, or what?
Yeah, actually, there was a really cute one. Jarkko Ruutu is playing for Pittsburgh, and he comes by the bench and he goes, "Hey, who's the bench warmer sitting next to you?" He says that to me. So I'm not going to indulge him because it's the middle of the game. Like, he's on a line change. Yeah. And the poor kid from the Canadiens is sitting on the bench right next to me, and he hears everything. Oh, and so finally, there's a TV timeout, and Ruutu, with a stick, bangs in the glass and gets the kid's attention. He goes, "Hey, can you turn around? I don't know who you are. I want to see your name." And, and the kid, I don't know if he heard him or not, but he did turn around. And Jarkko goes like this. I don't know. Probably the wildest one, I think I told you this one, was during the Stanley Cup final in 2011. Bruins beat Vancouver. So this would have been early in the series, probably game 5, maybe earlier. I don't know. And Brad Marchand and Maxime Lapierre were getting after one another. Something awful. Like, I'm telling you, bad. And it was during a TV timeout, and I just pushed my talk back, and I looked at Mark Recchi on the bench, and obviously I'd been on the bench with Recchi before, and I go, "Look, I don't care. It doesn't bother me, but this is about to go on live TV, and, like, these guys, can you just get him to shut up?" And Mark goes, "I got it." And he basically told Brad to calm down. And he did, and I think the world of both guys. Like, I thought Lapierre got the most he ever could out of his body and his ability, and he played a long time. He did. Passion for the game was phenomenal. And Brad's still cooking, so got a lot of time. But to Jason's question, someday maybe I'll put some stories out there with my buddy Jimmy Murphy. We'll write a book and talk about it, but I don't know if now's the appropriate time. I'll wait a little longer.
Understood. All right, next question. Joel Kravitz. Pierre, for continuity, wouldn't it be wise to re-sign Jake Evans and possibly consider Yoel Amir for about $3.5 million for 2 years, thus allowing more time for development and ripening of our players?
Joel, that's a really good point. It's something that I've talked about with Tony Marinaro. I think it's fair. The one thing I'd say, though, is Armia's not getting any younger. Like, it doesn't mean he doesn't have game left, but I don't know if I'd want it. It depends on what I get, Evans done at. If Evans' number goes a little higher than what I want, then I don't think I can do the Armia stuff. But I think it's a fair point. There's something there with Heineman, with Armia, and with Jake Evans. I know I hear all the color guys say, "Oh, the fourth line." I would never insult those guys because they play more than any fourth line. They're important. Yeah. All 3 of those guys are really important.
All right, next question. I think, are we done? That might be it. Oh, no, Randy's got another. Jimmy and Pierre, do you see the Canucks and Flames game? Old-time hockey, what did you think of that game? I did see highlights. I didn't watch it close enough, Randy, so I can't really comment on it, but I don't know, Pierre, sorry.
Yeah, no, Pierre didn't see it. Pierre watched the highlights like Jimmy did, so I apologize for that. I've been watching a lot of hockey, the world. So just so everybody understands, Jimmy and I don't pretend. If we don't see something, we just say it. Yeah. Unlike other people that will take other people's reporting and actually use it as their own, we're not going to do that. And if I don't watch a game, I'm not comfortable giving you a report just because I don't want to fudge it. The World Junior, I have not missed any games, and there's many reasons why. But it's really important when you do what I do to keep tracking guys and see where they're going with their development. Some guys, they're heading the right way, and other guys, they're not. They're heading the wrong way. And so it's more convoluted than you think. So I don't miss any of those games. And so you can't watch everything. You just can't be fresh every day. You just can't.
All right, next question. What do we got? Is that it? One more? No. Oh, looks like we're done. Looks like you're done. If you got any more, no problem. We're willing to take them. But
we'll take whatever you got. And if not, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
I don't see any more there.
Anthony's coming on tomorrow, right, Jimmy? That's that's the coach.
Yes, UNLV. Well, looking forward to that. We're gonna talk about that, and I want to get into what his thoughts are, and Pierre, your take too, because I know we've touched on it a bit. Well, just what the effect of the CHL NCAA agreement has on club hockey, and does it allow them a bigger window to advance to the next level and become Division I club. So we'll get into that as well. But until then, Happy New Year again to everybody out there. And before we go to, I know it's not hockey, and I know it's not, well, it's kind of connected to sports, but, to the people in New Orleans and all who were affected by the attack there, we want to send our condolences and our love, and we're thinking of you, and hang in there. So I want to get that out there. Just a tragic.
Well done, Jimmy. Well done, Jimmy. Well done.
All right.
Really good.
And also thank you to our crew in Montreal and you, the viewers and the listeners. This has been another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.